Guys, if you've been thinking, if you're in the midst, I should say, of working on Star-Spangled Beauty Ladder Quilt, then this is a tutorial for you. But even if you're not working on that, stay tuned, because what I'm going to share with you, I think is going to be helpful when you go to do any background like quilting with block by block quilting, okay? So, and especially on the flag block, what am I talking about? Okay, this is the flag block I'm referring to. Have any of you gotten to that one yet? And you're going, oh, I'm nervous. How do I do that quilting so that it lands right on those stripes? Well, you do that through the method of what we call block by block quilting, okay? Not to be confused with clear blue tiles quilting. Okay, block by block quilting is literally what it's saying. You take one block at a time, you quilt it on your embroidery machine with the batting and everything, and then you sew those blocks together to make your quilt top. Okay, so in this case, you are doing this flag block as separate blocks, and then you're sewing it all together into your final quilt. And of course, we know that final quilt looks like that, right? So here's your little tutorial. Now, I think half the battle with getting started with any project, but in particular, maybe a project like this, is that you look at this book, see all my little tabs? You look at this book and you go, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, right? Don't feel that way. I've got you. And we all have you, because if you have even more questions, you can always ask the Bellas and Fellas over on our Facebook group. But this is the book, okay? And you might be going, okay, this feels a little intimidating, but I'm here to tell you that we walk you through every single step of the way so that you can't go wrong, all right? But I realize too that sometimes a little extra tutorial here and there can be very helpful, especially when it comes to doing background quilting, and especially when it comes to doing background quilting on those specific stripes. So today, that's why I'm here. Let me show you the block that I ended up finishing last night. Okay, you can see it looks, I've got a few straggled threads on there. Okay, you can see it looks a little bit different than maybe the image I showed you earlier, because I chose a different phrase. Instead of using America, land that I love, we have options with the background quilting that comes as part of the optional download. And this one says, My Home Sweet Home. So I use that, and I'm thinking I'm going to turn this maybe into some kind of pillow or wall hanging as well. In fact, I just have to show you, I was cleaning out my sewing closet the other day. Not for the faint of heart, my friends. That sewing closet was packed full. But guess what I found? Can any of you relate? I found some perfectly pieced blocks that I did couple years ago. No one has UFOs out there, right? I found some of these that I had done that I haven't quite sewn together yet. And I went, oh, it's red, white, and blue fabric. Maybe I can put something together really fast, right? See, it pays to clean out your closets, right? Okay. Anyway, so let's go back to the quilting. So that's what I'm going to show you today. But through the magic of television, just like a cooking show, I've pre-stepped it for you so that you don't have to sit here and watch me embroider every single little thing. Okay, so I'm going to open up my book, and I'm going to go I'm going to start off on page 42. Okay, 42 right here. And I'm getting out the trusty highlighter because I like to do that when I'm teaching. All right. So I'm going to make this really simple for you. I'm going to cut out all the stuff that maybe doesn't apply to you at this point, because maybe you got the embellishment kit like I did, and you want to put little star buttons on there in addition to this background quilting. Okay. So I opened up to page 42, and like I said, you've got options. You can say, oh, if you're using the optional star buttons, like I am, then here are the sections of the book that you're going to want to skip to, okay? But if you are stitching the stars, because there is an option to stitch the little white stars, if you are stitching that, then that is your option. Let's see if I can pull this closer, okay? And these are the sections you want to refer to. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I am using I want to do my background quilting with the stars, but I'm also using the little star buttons on top. So the only thing I need to think about right here are these sections. I'm going to ignore all of this, okay? I don't need to think about it because it doesn't apply to me, all right? So if you look at this, now it says, let's see if I can show that. Now it's telling you the sections that you're going to want to refer to. All right, so for example, it says, I'm going to complete the following because I'm doing block by block quilting. I'm going to do part A, option 1. Well, guess what? That title, part A, option 1, is right there. Part A, option 1, block by block quilting. So I know I need that information, right? Okay, next, part B, optional block by block quilting. I'm just going to highlight this so you can see how easy it is to navigate all the stuff you don't need to know versus the stuff you need to know, right? So if I'm looking for that section of the book, I go, oh, there it is, option B, for block by block quilting, or part B, I should say, for block by block quilting. Okay, part A is this star block. Part B are these stripes. All right. Okay. Then it tells me I need to also look at the section called the trimming instructions. All right. Let me go here. Oh, there it is. The title section, the section titled trimming instructions. And then I look at sewing the block. Let's see. Oh, right there. It's titled Sewing the Block. So I know that seems a little tedious right now to do that, but I hope that it helps kind of make you feel not so overwhelmed by all the information that's there because of the options. All right. All right. So that's what I start doing first. That's just my little tip. Now, I'm going to do the block by block quilting on the little blue star block. So that means I'm going here to this section, and it's telling me that if I am adding buttons, which I am, then I'm going to quilt this like a filler block. Okay, that might not make sense to you quite yet, but the great news is it also tells you that that information can be found in a resource guide from Kimberbell. Let me grab mine that you can download for free at kimberbell.com. I keep mine in my binder here. It looks like this. It will also come as part of your files when you're purchasing any Kimberbell product. But I'm telling you guys, this is a gold mine. If you have not downloaded this resource guide, I'm telling you, you have missed out, and today's the day to download it. Because if you've ever wanted to figure out how Kimberbell techniques are done step by step, it's in this resource guide. I mean, if you just look at the contents here, you're going to learn about applique, sashing, adding a binding, quilting, doing background quilting, all the things. It's in here. So that tells me right there that I can refer to that, right? But it also is in the download itself for the background quilting. Okay, so because it's in the download itself, I thought I'm just going to print this out because I'm doing this star background quilting, this star right here, and I'm going to take this step by step. All right. Now, it also told me to use technique 1. When you're doing block by block quilting, there's 2 techniques, technique 1, technique 2. So I'm going to ignore technique 2. I don't need technique 2. It told me technique 1. So that's all I'm going to look at, right? And if I even, let's see, I marked this page to show you that it will even tell you how big to cut your batting piece if you want to know that. Okay. So technique 1, whoop, I'm skipping all the stuff I don't need to know right now. I'm only doing technique 1. That is on page 5 of this download, and it's titled technique 1. So because of that, that's what I'm going to use. All right. Now on this block, I'm not going to show you step-by-steps because you guys, the directions are so good. But I hoped that by kind of leading you, guiding you to the things that you need to know versus the things you don't need to know and become overwhelmed with information that doesn't apply to you, then that will be helpful. But look, when I talk about step-by-step instructions, I'm not kidding. Right here, it's showing that you're stitching that design right on your stabilizer. Then you're putting your batting down. Then you're stitching your design, your tack down line of the batting. Then you're cutting your batting. Then you're stitching a placement line for your fabric. You place the fabric, you tack it down, you stitch your design. Done. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit more in part B of this tutorial with actual designs, but that's how simple it is. And if you will just follow that step by step, you'll have that star block done in no time. Now remember, this star block is the background quilting, and then I'm adding additional little star buttons that are so cute. Let me pull it up again so you can see how cute these are. Okay, I'm adding these little star buttons there as well. Okay, so that is technique 1. Check it off your list. You can refer to the resource guide if you want to. But for this particular one, this is a bonus design that comes in the bundle of the Star-Spangled Beauty background quilting, okay? And this is a bonus design because we normally don't do 3.5-inch designs. You know, we stick to the even numbers. But because of this particular block, they added it as a bonus when you buy the bundle. And you'll want to download these directions or just look at them on your computer too, is fine. And just skip right to step number 1 or technique 1 on page 5. You can ignore the rest. Okay. Now, the second one I want to share with you, and this is where we're going to go a little bit more step by step, is in part B of this design are the flag stripes and the words that were stitched across it. So that's what I'm going to show you today. Okay. So let me look at this again. Okay. Again, I'm looking at part B, the stripes. So that means I'm going to go to part B in here. It's labeled part B, optional block by block quilting. All right. Now it will tell me right there which design width I'm looking for. Okay. So it says, okay, you're looking for KDQ 411 border patriotic, the 1.5-inch width. Okay. Now it doesn't tell you the length to use because it depends on what size of hoop you have. Let me explain. You're going to be given options for 4 different lengths. If you have a 5x7 hoop, guess what? You can use the 7-inch length. If you have a 6x10 hoop, you can use the 10-inch length. If you have a 12-inch 8x12, you would use a 12-inch hoop. If you have a 9x14 hoop, you would use the 14-inch length. Okay. For these flag blocks, because the length isn't very long, I used a 5x7 hoop for this one, and I used my 6x10 hoop for this one. All right. I should say 5x7 for this and this, because this is a floral design here. And I used my 6x10 for this floral design and this one. All right. Now you might be thinking, but wait, Kim, I don't have a 6x10 hoop. Maybe a 5x7 is all you can go up to. No problem. Because of the amazing way that our digitizers put this together, You could rehoop this, and it's really simple to do. We walk you through every single step in the download. You could rehoop this and still get the same look as if you had a larger hoop, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so I'm now at part B here in the book, and it's telling me that I need to quilt these blocks first. Well, before I sew them together, let me show you. As part of the download for this border, you're going to receive this PDF. Now, again, you don't have to print this, but I printed it so that you could see what I'm referring to here. But this is the Patriotic Border 5. It comes with the words, and it also comes with the florals, okay? These come in the widths of 1, 1.5, and 2-inch widths, all right? So it's perfect for like doing sashing and some thinner borders. All right. So what are you going to think about here? Well, I'm going to skip right to page 3, where don't let this overwhelm you. It gives you a whole list of, your batting sizes if you need it, okay? If you don't need the batting size and you just go, well, I just need a larger piece of batting than what is outlined, you could do that too. I'll show you that here in a minute. But if you do want, precise cuts, here's the chart you're looking for. For example, I cut the width of one of these stripes. Let's see. I think this was a 2.5 by 5.5, 6, something like that, inch of fabric strip. The directions will be in your book, okay? So I cut it at that. So it's telling me, all right, if your fabric cut width is 2 or 2.5, then your batting size is going to be a 2 by 6. And this is the file name you're going to use. Okay, look at that very closely. I'm using the 1.5-inch width. Remember, told us in the book we're using a 1.5-inch width. But because I chose to use a 7-inch hoop, then I look at this one and I go, oh, it's 1.5 by 7. Okay, perfect. I'm going to use that file. Okay. But if I had a 10-inch, like a 6 by 10, and I want to do these longer stripes, I would go, okay, I'm going to use, let's see, I cut my fabric at 2.5 by 9. In this case, I think it was. And I'm going to go down here to, this is divided into the words up here and then the florals, okay? So make sure and pay attention to that, whether you're doing the floral quilting or the word quilting. And this one says, okay, if you cut your fabric at a 2.5-inch width, in this case I did, then I circled that right there. Yep, that's what I cut mine at. And say I'm going to use my 10-inch hoop, then I'm going to cut my batting at 2 by 10.5, and then I'm going to use the file called 1.5 by 10 in this case. 1.5 by 10. Now I know which file to use. Pretty awesome, right? But if I had a 5 by 7 hoop, I would use the 1.5 by 7-inch file. Do you see how that works? The very first number in the file name is going to refer to the width of your fabric. The second number, in this case 7 or 10 or 12 or 14, that actually refers to the length of hoop you have. So therefore you can choose whatever one works best for you. Okay. If you're thinking, okay, that seems overwhelming, I want you to watch this video again. I think we're going to pull out this segment and create its own segment so that you can refer to it again and think to yourself, okay, that makes sense. And as you look at this chart, you're going to go, okay, that makes sense. All right. Don't let it overwhelm you. because it really is simple. You just think about it step by step and you've got this. Now, the next thing I'm going to turn to is page 7 for first hooping. First hooping. This is what I'm showing you right here. All these steps is what I'm about to show you right here. And then we're going to finish the quilting together, which is kind of fun. The very first thing it has you do, I've got this pre-done for you, okay, is it has you stitch out what we call a placement line. So I did that in a dark blue. I hooped just a light mesh cutaway stabilizer, and it has you stitch out the placement line. Okay, now I know that the next step I've got to do is take the batting piece, and it told me in the chart what size to cut the batting piece, but you don't have to use that. You could, or you just make sure that whatever batting you have is larger than this placement line, okay? But I'm going to take my batting piece, I'm going to place it over the entire section so that it's all covered, and it's going to stitch down what we call a tack down line, okay? That's the next step. Let me show you what that looks like. Here we go. See, I feel like I'm getting the cookies out of the oven. Because right here, there you go. This is the tack down line. You still have this extra batting, right? Well, the next step would be to take some scissors, okay, and cut away, trim away the extra batting, okay? So there you go. I've trimmed that away. I would trim up here, over, and down. Trim away all that extra batting. So you now have something that looks like this. Now, ignore this extra line here for just a moment. You would have just the batting rectangle right there. The next step is to now do what we call, we call it the border fabric placement line. That goes outside of the border just a tad, okay? Right there so that you know where to place your fabric. But let me show you in the directions here something really important to do. Before you go on, after you've stitched that, it says that you need to roll a piece of tape on the top and the bottom so that you can place your fabric down. Okay, let me show you why that's important. So I'm grabbing my little Kimberbell paper tape here. And I'm just going to roll this. Now, what I'm showing you here today is how you would do borders. And you're thinking, well, then why are you doing that on this? And that's because the designs we used on these stripes are from the border designs. So that's why we're doing it that way. Okay. So I rolled up my piece of tape and I put one just right at the top there and one at the bottom. And this is just going to hold your fabric in place until it does a tack down stitch. All right. The next step after I've rolled my tape is I'm going to take my piece of fabric. This is what I'm stitching my design onto. Okay. And right side up, I'm now going to place that on top of those little rolls of tape. I'm just going to center that right along. There we go. There we go. I just centered that so that the fabric, this is an oversized piece of fabric, by the way. I centered it so that, whoops, it was on the top and the bottom, okay? And what's next is it will stitch a tack down line on each side, or on each long side, I should say in this case. It doesn't stitch a tack down line across the top or the bottom, because if this was a longer border, you don't want a tack down line going across your border. You want it to be continuous, right? So that's why it's only going to stitch out a line here and a line here for you. All right, let's go to that point. This is what that looks like. Okay, it tacks it down just enough so that the very final step, which I'm going to do right here, is actually going to do your background quilting and you're done, kind of. Then you need to trim it up, right? So I'm going to put this on my machine while I take a look at your questions. And let me move my stuff out of the way here. And let's see what this darling quilting is going to look like. And you can see how long it takes, which isn't long at all. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to show you right there what's happening. Okay. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do something. Of course, because I'm doing this live, I forgot to advance my design to do the very last step because I'd already done the previous steps. So let me do that first. Hold up. Of course that would happen. Let me advance. I'm moving the steps over just a little bit so that I get to the very final step, which is the America. Here we go. See, that's what I want to stitch. Oh well. See, never let them see you sweat, and everything is always figure-outable, right? That's what I say. Okay, here we go. While that's stitching out the final step, what kinds of things are you saying, wanting to know? All the things. Yeah, gotta love life. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Kathy, I'm going to put you on the spot here. She says, sometimes I skip the placement line. Probably is so important. It is. It is important. Anyway, and it takes like less than maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Okay. Sheila says, hearing you explain the directions makes it not so scary to tackle. Good. Oh, I'm so glad, Sheila. Yeah, it really is super simple. Guys, it just stitched out. It's done. How long was that? Not long at all. Now, remember, I forgot to advance my thing. So you're going to see an extra line in there. Pretend that line is not there. But that is what America looks like. Isn't that fun? Oh my gosh. So these are oversized pieces. Why did we do oversized pieces? It's because that process of stitching and design, especially if it was like an applique design or something with heavy stitching, it pulls that fabric in. So you don't end up, I guess, with maybe the same size it originally started with. So that's another tip for you. Let me pull this up here. Is that when you went to cut this fabric, if you were doing block by block quilting, which is highlighted in blue, these are the sizes that you're going to cut for your stripes, right? If you were not doing block by block quilting, if you were just stitching all of this, putting it together on your machine and then taking it to a long arm quilter, then you cut the standard size, okay? Because there's no reason to oversize it. But if you're doing block by block quilting, all of our newer products have now given that some extra room for borders, and that will always be highlighted in blue. In fact, it will also be highlighted in blue at the very beginning in your fabric cut list. So it's in two different places. All right, let me pull this up here just to show you. If you're doing a block by block size. Let's see, here we go. If you saw all of these cut sizes right here, if you are doing block by block quilting, make sure you cut it in that oversized piece that is listed here, okay? If you're not doing quilting on your embroidery machine, then you just cut at the standards. Okay, now the other thing I was going to show you is when you're done with the quilting, there's another very important step. It's the trimming instructions, right? Right there. And it says that you need to, after quilting, so after this, you trim it now to the standard size. Well, how do you know what the standard size is? Because it tells you right there. So after I've done my quilting on this size of fabric, I'm now going to trim it down to this size. And that's just so that you have the perfect size block after your quilting is done to put it into your quilt. All right. And then this right here also tells you to trim that the star block to a 3.5 by 3.5 inch size, because that also started out as an oversized piece. And then you sew your flag together. And then after all of that, you get this beauty. Isn't that awesome? Now you're going to see that says America on one stripe. And then on the next stripe, it's florals. And then on the next stripe, it says land that I love. And then it starts to stitch America again. It's up to you. You have options, because I think perhaps what someone did there in that case was maybe they did do a rehooping of a 5x7, or they used a longer file. You have options. Let me show you the options. Right here in this download, you'll see all the options and the links. And they actually included a couple more bonus sizes just so that you have as many word phrase options as you wish. Okay. For me, I chose just to use a 6x10 and added or put on there my home sweet home. So you got options, right? Okay, I hope that helped. I know that was a lot to take in. And I promise you, once you try it, it's going to be so simple. If you will literally just follow step by step and not worry about all the extra stuff in there. The extra stuff is it's great because it's giving you all the information you need, right? But I'm telling you right here that sometimes you can just look at the information that is absolutely necessary for your particular block. And in this case, today's particular block was the flag block, and that's all you need to know. Okay. If you were doing additional hoopings, maybe you were doing like a full border, which you do with the florals in the quilt, and you're doing one after another, well, you will want to pay attention to one more thing. Let me show you. Remember, I did this first hooping, and that's all I needed to look at because the strips were so short in the flag block. Well, if I were doing the background quilting on the borders, the long borders, do the first hooping, but then you're going to want to go to the second page, which says additional hoopings, and we'll show you step by step. It's very simple to do. I'm telling you, it's going to blow your mind how easy it is. This tells you how to extend that so that it doesn't look like you rehooped it. It literally looks like a long armor took it and did all the quilting for you. But you did it on your embroidery machine, which is so fun. Does that help? I sure hope it does. I sure hope that does. It was a lot to go through in a small amount of time, but I hope you found that helpful.